Hi. This is a 46-minute piece. So, I wasn't sure if I was coming tonight. I saw a post, and if I came, I wasn't sure what I wanted to share, but I saw a post shared by the Gym City Action page that says the Newark City Council has announced a hearing scheduled for Tuesday, September 3rd at 5:45 p.m. to discuss an ordinance to criminalize homelessness. I've worked in housing for 20 years. I have had the privilege of working in shelters, working in group homes, working in jails, working in public housing, in many different capacities. And so housing has stayed pretty close to my heart. After hearing about, I think it was it Idaho that had a law saying that homelessness could be criminalized, and the Supreme Court upheld it. And I feel very comfortable, despite all the goddamn terrible, sad things happening in this world. I am incredibly scared for our unhoused population of people. When I worked at the St. Vincent shelter in 2010, when they, and I told Link this story not too long ago, when they decided to separate the men from the women at the shelter, and they moved the men out to a shelter out on Gettysburg, in an act of what I call apartheid. They took them from downtown, where they were very near a lot of resources, and put them way out on the edges of the county where not even buses drive. They put them in an old prison facility. The doors are off, but it's still a prison. That's what the men's shelter is out on Gettysburg right now. Apartheid is happening here. It is happening with so many vulnerable populations. And so we have to be aware of that. One of the things that makes it so easy for them to do something like that and move them out is because we hate homelessness. And I'm saying that to the leftists as much as the other people. We hate it. We talk about ending homelessness, ending homelessness, ending homelessness. Homelessness is a right. People have a right to be unhoused. People have a right to be poor. And the thing is, when you start suggesting that people shouldn't be unhoused, sometimes, and in my experience, being unhoused is the safest situation for some people. It just is. There doesn't exist a housing situation for some people. It's very complex, these issues. And so I wrote a piece that sort of addresses this in so many ways, and I wanted to share it, if you all will allow me. This is a piece I wrote called Meet the Need. Housing projects are just concentration camps for the homeless and impoverished. And now, you may see a problem with phrases like, we need to house the homeless. It's verbiage straight from the lips of the oppressor, because it posits that in order to live, we have to simply accept anything which is given, or we're ungrateful and undeserving of service. So let's reclaim the language. Instead of we need to house the homeless, we should say let's meet the needs of all humans. Then we can flip the script on what trickle-down economics is. I say we place those who own the least at the top of the pyramid. They get first dibs, but that isn't determined by offering minimalist gifts, but by simply asking them what they need help with and then providing for what they're asking. Because in my experience, 9 times out of 10, when you ask an unhoused person what they need help with, they're not going to say a place to live. No, they're going to say something like food or clothes or medicine. Maybe they'll ask for money or nothing at all, or maybe just a cigarette. Maybe they'll ask for substance use disorder treatment or a bottle of something like Jack or Jim or wine, something red to warm their spirit. In that case, maybe just give them some money instead. We just need to meet them where they're sleeping. instead of bringing them someplace we like best, because that may be the only place that's ever felt like home to them. Maybe a shelter or a Section 8 apartment just feels like they're caged in. So this tent, which has kept them dry in tolerance and has made them feel safe when every newspaper page says the world is about to end, feels more like home than any place you or I have ever been. And the rattle of the trusses when the trains pass overhead shakes them in a way they haven't felt since they were an infant. And the embrace of their mother's arms and her cooing and rocking made them feel protected even when the ceiling was caving in. And offering housing to those whose ideas of home is predicated on a toxic relationship, well, it's like offering food to somebody who's had an allergic reaction to every bite they've ever taken. So instead of digging deeper to solve the problem of their malnourishment, we force them to choke on bread, or we just let them die of starvation instead. The easiest solution is to shout about how we just need to house the homeless because they're not people to us until we need to get a liberal reelected. And then these empty epithets become the catchphrases we toss around in the media and press on the left to make us sound like we give a shit. So let's admit, we love the homeless, not because they're humans with thoughts and emotions, but because we benefit from their existence. With their help, we get to elect radical presidents and representatives and local politicians who say progressive things like we need to house the homeless, and then they increase the funding for law enforcement. Then when you can't find a public toilet because they don't exist, you'll get arrested for the crime of taking a piss. I mean, you couldn't hold it until you passed through the gates of Auschwitz. That's exactly why you deserve to be there in the first place. You're a disgrace, barely a person. No civilized race would ever urinate off the Miami riverbank. So we buy into the idea that we just need to house the homeless, and we watch them getting tagged and boarded onto trains. And now we can feel peace because we no longer see such a degree of deprivation sleeping on the street because it makes us nervous. And the rates of recidivism just peaked up 50% from last week because instead of looking at them as people and talking to them about how we may meet their needs, we pawn them off on the housing authority and institutional hostility and bickering neighbors in tenements with old bullet holes because one of them had uncontrollable anger and third-party statements, and they don't have any friends or family. All they know are strangers, so their food stamps and Medicaid will be withheld, the case manager stamping denied at the bottom of the paper. And they didn't realize they were supposed to clean their refrigerator, and something they left in there has returned to life, and it's gotten bigger, and the smell reached the stairwell. They couldn't even take it. Went out for a few days, and when they returned later, an eviction notice was posted on the door, something about housekeeping and maintaining a sanitary space, and as outlined in your lease. Great. Now they have to start all over again from the bottom, and now they don't even have a tent. But at least there's a leftist so compassionate that they'll take a picture of them sleeping on a park bench and they'll post it with the hashtag house the homeless. These can be our friends if we really want them to be. These can be people to whom we devote all of our efforts of safety and security. We can give them peace. Create a coalition of community members who perform outreach, not just to convince them they have to leave everything they know so we can feel good about our deeds, but that we will support and serve them unconditionally, that we will try and try and try again to make them happy based on what they perceive. Let's face it, we only really want to house the homeless because it's what will help us sleep. We could never dream of living as they do, bunch of savages. If you ask me, it's a colonizer mindset. When we say we need to house the homeless, what we're really saying is we need to tame those beasts. No, we've got to rise to meet them because the ones enduring the most suffering must be elevated to a greater degree. It'll be like worshiping the most in need, the supremacy of the struggling, and the ones with the most money aren't even worthy to wash their feet. So now you know why I hate hearing people say we just need to house the homeless, because it's a phrase which has only emboldened the elite to do away with them, and we think it's okay, like Germans in 1938 who watched Jews get displaced and thought they're just being taken to someplace safe. And the truth is enough to cause outrage, and empty platitudes are over, so act or don't say anything. Actively listen to the people we claim to want to serve, or walk away and live your life, and that'll be okay. But let's not pretend to give a shit by shouting vapid phrases like we need to house the homeless. That's like saying you love to fuck, but you only ever masturbate. And Sure, it's twice a day, and when you're not fondling your cock, at least you're thinking about doing it anyway. But let's be honest, you've never been laid. And poor people are marked for improvement, for betterment, as if being a capitalist landowner is the norm and anything else is sickness. And poor people are interlopers, a domestic burden. And we want that parking lot down by the river. It'll be good for community revenue. So let's paint the unhoused as desperate. And if they won't accept the help we deliver, well, we'll just make the choice clear. And a voice that's one part mayor and one part Hitler will ask the last question they'll ever hear. Which would you rather, the train or the trigger? I'm all done, but let me say this. I've been in the last few weeks in the starting steps, I meant to say this beforehand, of creating a homeless rights advocacy organization that serves to do homeless prevention work and also, working to ensure that we create legislation around protecting our homeless friends and neighbors and making sure that they're not being unfairly targeted. Also, we've just lost a third of our mental health funding in Montgomery County, so there's going to be a lot more people. We're going to need to protect them. We're going to need to talk to them, listen to them. They will tell you who they are and what they need. In my work, I have met some of the most brilliant, resilient, kind people. I've met people who are neurodivergent, people who are nonverbal. I've met people who have sensory issues and can't go stay in the shelter. And there isn't right now an adequate housing option for them. The people on the streets are there, and they're allowed to be there, and we need to protect their right to be there, okay? Thank you all. I love you with my whole heart.